Good evening. My name is Sally Allen, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters of the Ann Arbor area. I welcome you to tonight's forum featuring candidates for Ann Arbor City Council, Ward 1. The candidates will be on the ballot in the primary election on Tuesday, August 7th. We are broadcasting from the studios of CTN in Ann Arbor. The League of Women Voters is pleased to sponsor these forums. The League is a nonpartisan, civic, and political organization that encourages informed and active participation of all citizens in government. The League works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and seeks to strengthen and broaden knowledge about our form of government and democracy. While the League does not support candidates or parties, we do take stands on issues we have studied. One of the League's most important goals is to assist voters in making informed choices at the polls, and thus we bring you tonight's program. Our moderator this evening is John Chamberlain, who will explain the format and get us started. John?
Thank you, Sally. Tonight we have two candidates in the Democratic primary for a City Council seat from the 1st Ward. They are Ron Ginyard and Jeff Hayner. Each candidate will give a 90-second opening statement and a 1-minute closing statement. They will use their opening and closing statements as opportunities to introduce themselves and provide voters their views on the issues. The order of speaking was determined earlier by a random draw from a hat before we began. Opening first will be Mr. Hayner. Closing first will be Mr. Ginyard. I will ask the questions which came from the community and the committee of the League members. Each candidate will have up to 90 seconds for a response to each question. At appropriate times, the timers will hold up paddles with the amount of time remaining and then a stop sign. Please stop when indicated so that everyone has equal opportunity to participate. Our timers are League members Betty Bishop and Paige Silence. Okay, we are ready for the opening statements. Mr. Hayner.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for organizing this event. I'm Jeff Hayner, and I've lived in the 1st Ward for over 30 years since I came to the University of Michigan to earn my degree. My wife, Lee Abbott, and I have been married 21 years, and we live with our 2 children on Pontiac Trail. It's a great neighborhood. We love the north side. I've spent 15 years practicing design in the creative and tech fields, and 15 years as a small business owner in the trades. I have practical experience in project management, budgeting, engineering, and construction. This, along with my knowledge of city matters, my neighborhood advocacy, and my genuine concern for the environment has earned me the endorsement of Ward 1 Rep. Sumi Kalasapathy. It's also why I'm proud to be endorsed by the Huron Valley and Michigan chapters of the Sierra Club. I'm committed to protecting the Huron River and our Great Lakes water resources. For 20 years, I've been engaged in our community and spoken at many public hearings in defense of the environment, for sustainable land use, protection of our parks and natural spaces, and equitable growth. I'm consistent in my calls for fiscal responsibility, transparency, and fixing the roads. I've listened to and learned from my neighbors, and I'll continue to do so. Your choice in this election is critical for our city's future. As your council member, I'll work with others on council to focus priorities on what people really need from city government: responsiveness, integrity, and a safe, affordable, and welcoming place to call home. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ginyard.
Hello, my name is Ron Ginyard, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum. I am the Democratic candidate for Ward 1 Council seat. I was born here in Ann Arbor. I attended Ann Arbor Public Schools. I had a successful career as a stockbroker for 32 years in Southern California. I relocated back to Ann Arbor in 2014. I feel a good council person must have the ability to listen to different viewpoints and work with other council members for the good of the city. I promise to work with all residents of the 1st Ward, regardless of party affiliation, ethnic groups, and gender identity. Ann Arbor is a success story. With success comes new challenges. With effective collaboration and with community members and city leaders and city organizations and fellow council members, Ann Arbor will continue to be one of the best places to live in America.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to the questions, and Mr. Hayner will begin the first one. Neither of you has served on city council. What made you decide to become a candidate? What do you think you would bring to the position in terms of knowledge and experience concerning the city and the First Ward? Mr. Hayner.
Well, neither one of us have served on council. I ran for council in 2013, and I was just looking back at some of my literature today. I dug up, and I wish I had been elected, because I've been saying the same things consistently for the last 5 years and for the 15 years before that too. I have a broad range of experience and knowledge about the city. I most recently attended the Ann Arbor Citizens Academy, which I recommend to everyone. It was a terrific way to learn about the city. Sit on CARD, which is the Citizens Dioxin Watchdog Group, so I'm very concerned about our environment. And I think that my background in project management and budgeting would go a long way at the council table. I also have been on the board of a nonprofit where we had over $1 million budget. I've sat on the Safe Routes to School programs for our school. I think I feel like I'm informed, and I'm educated, and I'm involved in the community, and I think that's what the city needs.
Mr. Ginyard.
Well, when you undertake an endeavor like this, running for an elective office, you're doing it because you're passionate about something, and I am passionate about Ann Arbor. I think Ann Arbor has a lot going on, and as we look going forward in the city needs leadership so that we have an effective government. I think too many times our council gets bogged down in issues, whereas we should have been able to move forward from those issues, but the squabbles within. And I believe that is because we are not talking and negotiating and trying to work out the problem and finding the effective solutions for that problem. When you talk about experience, I had a successful career, as I mentioned, in financial management. I think the lessons that I've learned there will help me be a great council person. But one of the key things, when you work with other people's money, you have to listen to them. You have to understand what they're saying. You have to understand what their goals are. So I think that experience will help me listen to the residents of Ward 1 and help me listen to what other council members are saying, even if I don't agree with them. But from that point, I will be able to work with them to see if we can find a solution that works for everybody.
Thank you. Okay. The First Ward includes a large amount of University of Michigan property and the homes of a large number of U of M students. How satisfied are you with the relationship between the university and the First Ward? What are your principal concerns about this relationship, Mr. Ginyard?
Well, I think that Ann Arbor is blessed to have the university, and the university is blessed to have Ann Arbor. And I think over the years that the relationship between the two has been a good relationship. You know, now as we talk, as the university expands and increases its enrollment, created some questions for the First Ward. And I think that we need to work closer with the university and the university with us so that we get the type of things in the First Ward that we can live with as residents that can be beneficial to the university. I don't think we've done that yet. You know, I think that based on what I'm hearing about certain types of development in the First Ward that will benefit the university, the residents are having a hard time with this. But overall, I think that the two have worked well together. I think they will continue to work well together, but we must work out our differences at the same time.
Mr. Hayner?
The relationship that the city has with the university is a curious one, and we're kind of codependent in a way. U of M does own a lot of property that's not on the tax rolls, and that makes it challenging for us to budget. I've been calling for a pilot program for many years now, which is payment in lieu of taxes, voluntarily entered into by all nonprofits in the city if they feel that it's warranted. And I think the university should consider that. I think it's a good time for the university to consider that again, especially because Dr. Slissel participated in one when he was at Brown, and so it's not without precedent. One of the problems that we have in the First Ward, especially when I come home from work some days and there's a giant traffic jam in my intersection, and I look at all the cars, and it's a blue pass and a gold pass and a blue pass going by me, and the university isn't doing enough to encourage things like carpooling, ride sharing, alternative transportation, and things like that. And I think that's one place where we can work together with them. Another place we can work together with them is to sit down at the table with U of M and understand that they have a responsibility for some of these growth and crowding issues that are affecting Ward 1. And most of the growth in the city has come from university admissions and the expansion of the medical center and R&D labs and things like that affiliated directly with the university. So I'd like to see U of M sit down with the city and talk about things like creating workforce housing and student housing on their own land that's off our tax rolls, and taking some responsibility for the burden that they're putting on the city along with the good things. Thank you.
Beyond its relationship with the university, what important opportunities and challenges does the first ward face that are different from other wards in the city or different from citywide matters? Mr. Hayner.
Well, I think the biggest challenge that we have in the first ward is we have some of the last green space in the first ward. We're the ward that faces the river. Most of the river is in the first ward. And so that's a blessing and a challenge. We have seen tremendous growth in the first ward. And I would imagine that after this next census, they're going to rearrange our ward boundaries a little bit, because we've been taking it all in the first ward. And that's been a big challenge. And we need equitable growth, not the kind of growth that we're getting, which is more luxury condos, more luxury student housing, more sprawl type housing. I think we've failed to protect the things that are special about the first ward, the relationship with the river and the open space and the green space. It's a lot of nice neighborhoods. The council majority has dramatically failed the people of the first ward with the Lower Town development. We need to look back at our master plan, how it relates to the first ward, the Northeast Area Plan, the Northeast Area Transportation Plan, and really look at what the people have asked for. We put it in writing. There's no easier way to listen than to look at the documents that we've created. And so I think it's critical that we review our master plan and review our Northeast Area plans and the Lower Town plan and see if it's really what the people have asked for. Because right now, as far as everyone I talk to is concerned, it's not, and that's very important to us.
Thank you. Mr. Ginyard?
Well, when you look at the first ward, it probably has the most undeveloped land in the city, and now we're seeing a lot of that being developed. And as you look at that, it creates its own challenges. As you know, Pontiac Trail is not a big street. It is one lane each way, and yet we have a lot of development going on. And now we shortly will have what's happening at Nixon and DeVarn coming online. And so I believe that we must have development that fits our infrastructure within the ward. I also believe as we move forward that we're going to have to control that traffic coming off of the new development at Nixon and DeVarn. I believe it needs to be diverted out to Plymouth Road so that it doesn't come into Pontiac. So we do have a thing about some roundabouts coming in. And I don't know if that's going to be good for Pontiac Trail. It might be good for that. The problem is people don't like roundabouts, and that is to direct them to come down Pontiac Road, create further in that area. You know, as Jeff said, First Ward has Argo Park, where a lot of residents go to enjoy their summer. We must protect that area and along with the environment. Thank you.
What are your views on the Lower Town development on Broadway and its likely impact on the first ward? You had been on council as this project was being considered. Would you have supported the project in its current form? What would have been the principal factors influencing your decision?
Do you want to repeat? Maybe repeat the question?
Mr. Ginyard.
Well, I somewhat expected a development of that size. I'm not saying that's exactly what I wanted, but when you look at, you have Maiden Lane, you have Island Drive, that is an area where you're going to house people. One of the things that when I think about that development was that there's not enough for the community. And one of the things I see, I wanted to see personally, whereas we could have our own quote unquote Cary Town type of area in Lower Town. We don't have that yet. There's talk that it may come. When I look at it, you know, I haven't seen yet how the traffic is, but I think it's going to be impactful on the neighborhood of moving around. One of the things, if I'm on council, that I will propose is that a residential parking permit. You know, I do not want to see our residents on Broadway be overran with people coming into the city and residents of Lower Town parking in their neighborhoods where their company cannot have a place to park their cars when they come to visit. And I think that's very important. I've seen this in cities like Beverly Hills, whereas you must have a parking pass to park in the neighborhoods because it's right by some of the major businesses there.
Thank you. There seems to be a broad consensus that affordable housing is an important priority. Oh.
I know it was about Lower Town. Can you repeat the last?
Yeah, once we get the I'll repeat the question and then we'll go to you and they can cut it. Okay.
Sorry. Live TV.
All right, restarting here. What are your views on the Lower Town development on Broadway and its likely impact on the First Ward? If you had been on council as this project was being considered, would you have supported the project in its current form? What would have been the principal factors influencing your decision?
Well, I absolutely would not have supported this if I was on council, and I didn't support it from the moment that the developer made his presentation up the Holiday Inn there on Plymouth. It was clear from the start that they weren't going to respect the master plan, which called for a urban village. It's still in the master plan, and Planning Commission and Council just re-upped the master plan, just renewed the master plan, and it still exists. It's supposed to be an urban village site, a mixed-use site. And I was very vocal about this at Planning and Council. The rubber meets the road here in Ann Arbor when people ask for rezoning. We had a planned unit development on that site, and it had all kinds of community benefits. It was a lot closer to what was in the master plan, and they took that away from us. They took that away from us, and the excuse given was that we need the taxable value, we need the taxable square footage. And that's no reason to ruin one of the last critical parts of town. That's not an excuse, it's not acceptable. So I absolutely would not have supported that in its current form. And it's put a lot of pressure on other areas. It's put pressure on the DTE site development to come up with more retail because they're not doing mixed use, even though the C1AR zoning calls for mixed use. It's a bad joke that's been put on the people of Lower Town. And along with the 1,000-car parking structure that the university is going to build next to it, it's going to be devastating for our traffic and for our quality of life. And it isn't built yet. That's all I have to say about that. It ain't over till it's over.
Thank you. There seems to be a broad consensus that affordable housing is an important priority for the city. If the Core Spaces project on the library lot and its $5 million for affordable housing were not to proceed for some reason, what would you propose as a way to move forward on the goal of increasing the stock of affordable housing in Ann Arbor? How would you fund new housing? What kinds of housing would you advocate for? And what populations would you target for new affordable housing? Mr. Hayner.
Yeah, that's going to the ballot in November, so it's very possible that it will not be built. One way to look at, well, first of all, let me speak to the $5 million that was going to come from that. We're going to give back $1.4 million of that $5 million to earn the affordable units in that property, which I think is terrible. And we also gave away 75 of the 90 that were in the Lower Town projects by taking that from planned unit development to C1AR. So affordable housing is a citywide issue. It's more than just the downtown or the Lower Town area. To fund affordable housing, it only takes 6 votes on council to direct the city administrator to find money and create a plan for affordable housing. And the affordable housing that's being proposed for, say, the Y lot is not true affordable housing. It's not even true. It's not true workforce housing, and it's not even true affordable housing. When you look at taking 100 or 120 or 150% of AMI, and we're creating a space that's a 2-bedroom apartment for $2,000, that's not affordable housing. So we need to get 6 people together on council to direct the administrator to come up with a plan to fully fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and promote equitable growth with the remaining spaces in our city, downtown and in the perimeter. There's some good ideas for that. There's some transit overlay ideas, and there's plenty of opportunities to build true affordable housing. And we're talking about 30, 50% of AMI, not 100%, not 150%. We're not building affordable housing now. We're building unaffordable housing.
Mr. Guignard?
Well, this issue of affordable housing affects everybody. Yet when you have a city like Ann Arbor and the things that it's going through, it's a successful city. And most successful cities such as Seattle, Mountain View, Cupertino, they have the same problem. This is not unique to Ann Arbor. Success brings its own negative backlash. And so what do we do here? One of the things I think about affordable housing in this city is I would like to see all new housing be equally spread out throughout the 5 wards. I think that helps out. When we talk about workforce housing, market rate housing, and affordable housing, which I really believe affordable housing, we're now speaking about low income. When you talk about affordability in Ann Arbor, you've had to been here for a while yet. When you look back, and I've looked back to all the way 1968 when I started looking at things like this, because my stepfather ran for city council at that time. Ann Arbor has always been an expensive town. Okay, we're kidding ourselves if we think it just now became expensive. You know, and if you extrapolate back the rents in 1968 and bring them forward to today, the rate is about the same. So when we talk about this affordability, now we're literally running out of space. So we have a supply and demand problem here, which is pushing up the prices. How do we fund that? Well, I think that, you know, our CFO in the city, our budget is fairly balanced. So we have our work cut out to fund that. I don't have an answer for that right now, but I will work for an answer and a solution.
Last year, the voters of Washtenaw County approved a 10-year millage to address mental health and public safety in the county. Communities with their own police forces, like Ann Arbor, will have discretion to spend their designated share of the millage revenue on priorities of their choice. In April, the City Council voted to devote the city's millage revenue to affordable housing, pedestrian safety, and climate change. Do you agree with these priorities? If so, why? If not, what changes would you like to see made? Mr. Ginyard?
Okay. Well, I know that's been a very contentious issue here right now in the city. How should that rebate portion of that money be spent? And I look at it like this. The ballot proposal stated that that rebate was coming back, and the city leaders said they were going to do this. 40%, 40, and 20 to the designated areas that we spoke about. I like the aspect of the 40% going to affordable housing because that's just what we were mentioning. I also see that there was transparency. At first, when I looked at the issue, I didn't think there was transparency, but many news articles and everything stated what the city would do with that money. Now, if I've talked to people who have been pushing something for the city to do from a mental health standpoint with that money, I don't think Ann Arbor is ready to get into the healthcare business. That's a county function. And I don't think Ann Arbor residents or taxpayers want to be double taxed by giving that rebate back to the county. So we're talking about affordable housing. Let's use it for affordable housing. And I've mentioned to the people who've been pushing this thing, give me a plan. Give the council a better plan than what they have on the table, and you probably will get somewhere. But I don't think it's not so much that it's not well thought out, I don't think there's a plan there.
Mr. Hare?
The mental health millage was an interesting thing. It was quite a long ask on the ballot. I know the League of Women Voters would like simple things on a ballot, and we even have school millage. It was a combined ask. It was a renewal and a Headley override, same question, which was very confusing to voters. And I think the millage money should be spent on what it was intended. I think that redirecting this millage money to uses other than mental health is a perversion of the intent of the voters. We have plenty of needs for mental health in the city. It ignores the obvious needs in our community by saying that. Statistics show that in a city of approximately 120,000 people, when you include our students, that 14 to 16,000 people are going to have mental health issues. They're going to have domestic violence issues. We have an opioid crisis and drug issues. There are all kinds of mental health issue needs in this city. And to take that money and say it's for pedestrian safety and that's kind of safe, to say it's for affordable housing and that's kind of a mental health issue, and it is, that's the only part of that I think is close. And I don't even think that's a good excuse. It was a cooked up wealth transfer scheme to take the money from the townships and then the way from the outlying areas of the county, and the way they rebated that money was on a per capita basis. And so that all that money from the outer part of the county flowed into the city, to Ypsi and to Ann Arbor, and I just think that's wrong.
So instead of me presenting issues to you, why don't each of you take 90 seconds to talk about something you'd like to talk about that you deeply believe in that we haven't covered yet and you'd like the voters of Ann Arbor to know about. And Mr. Hayner, you're first.
Wow, there's so many things.
Yeah.
Well, what to choose? I think I'll pick one. I think I'll pick the long neglected Gelman plume issue. And we've had this going on for a long time now. We know that. It's been 30, 40, 50 years this has been going on. And we haven't had any action. We don't have a written plan for dealing with the remediation of the Gelman plume. We're tied up in court. We can't hear about what's going on in court. And the council majority this year failed to join the EPA Superfund request. And if the city of Ann Arbor had joined the EPA Superfund request, we would be designated, we would be added to that site cleanup list. And the only way we're going to compel a polluter pay and a polluter cleanup is the EPA. The EPA has the authority to compel polluter pay. We don't. We're taking our chances in the court, and that's not the chances I'd like to see. I'd like to see us do more, and if you don't know this already, that dioxin has been found in groundwater samples and soil samples in our parks on the west side. So it's a violation of the prohibition zone. The MDQ is about to be hamstrung by this new oversight committee. It's time that we take matters into our own hands. And I've also suggested a 1% for water scheme, whereby we take 1% of every water bill and set it aside in a fund dedicated to the cleanup or the treatment if necessary when it's in our plant. It's a big issue that we need to do better with. We need to be prepared to act.
Okay. Well, just want to touch on that Gelman plume. My thought is that we need to put more pressure on Danaher Corporation. I've taken the time to read their annual report, and they state in their annual report that they have adequate resources to meet any liabilities and lawsuits that they currently have out there. And they also currently have $1 billion in cash. Yet, they don't even mention Ann Arbor and its issue. They bought Paul Corporation, which bought Gelman. And so it is their responsibility when you make a takeover of another company. So I think we have to push them harder and let it be known publicly that this is a corporation that is not meeting the standards, of what a corporation should. I also think about some of the issues in the city of gentrification. That's been, talked about a lot now. Now we have the Water Hill area, and we're seeing a lot of strange occurrences over there where people who live there are basically being treated like criminals, people that grew up there. This isn't right. Ann Arbor has always been a diverse community, and yet now residents who have been here 60, 70 years are having the police called on them because they look different.
Thank you. We will now move to closing statements of 1 minute. Mr. Ginyard, you're first.
Well, I hope that Ann Arbor continues to grow, and by growing, I hope they achieve smart growth. And one of the ways to do that is plan for change and integrate environmental thinking and insist on opportunity for all. I think that we have to do more with less, assess and manage our expenses rigorously, explore partnerships and investment accountability, and embrace technology. I think these things will help us continue to be the best city that we can be. From there, again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this forum, thank my opponent for sharing this discussion with me. As your council person, I will always work on your behalf with integrity and transparency. I will vigorously address the issues of potholes, congestion, and safety issues for your children and affordability for all. Ann Arbor is a great city. Let's keep it that way. So stay the course, and on August 7th, vote Ron Ginyard for City Council Ward 1. Thank you.
Hayner.
Yeah, I'd second the thanks to League of Women Voters for their support of voting rights. We'd be in the dark without them. And I firmly believe that voting is a responsibility that earns your rights. It seems that the current council majority has forgotten the government works for us, not the other way around. I've been a hard worker and a conscientious worker my entire life, and that's not going to change. But this isn't about me. This is about all of us. We say we love Ann Arbor. Love's a word that means work. It means commitment, and it means continuously showing up, even if it's not glamorous. That's what I've done for our city, and I'll continue to do that as your first ward rep. So please remember to vote, no matter who you vote for. Vote August 7th. It's so important. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, both for showing up tonight, but more for being willing to run for city council. Thank you.
Thank you to the candidates for participating in tonight's forum, to those who contributed questions, and to CTN for making this program possible. These forums will be rebroadcast on Channel 19 a number of times between now and the election. They are also available on demand for streaming on your computer or smartphone. Go to our website, lwvannarbor.org, and look for the link to the programs. And please urge your friends and fellow residents to watch these forums too. For additional nonpartisan information on candidates and ballot issues, go to vote411.org, the League's voter resource guide covering local, state, and federal candidates and ballot proposals that will appear on your ballot. Thank you.